The Batteries Included podcast is brought to you with United Chargers. United Chargers presents the Grizzly range of EV chargers. There's the original Grizzly Classic, a powerful, heavy-duty, portable EV charging station built to withstand the toughest conditions. The Grizzly Duo, a dual-port unit designed to charge two vehicles at the same time. The Grizzly Mini, a small, portable charging station built with an indoor-outdoor rated cast aluminium enclosure. And the Grizzly Smart, a revolutionary smart EV charger. All Grizzly chargers come with a convenient 24-foot cable and the ability to adjust the current from 16 amps all the way up to 40 amps. That's 9.6 kilowatts. Plus, they're IP67 rated. Built in Canada with the highest quality materials. Order yours now at unitedchargers.com. That's unitedchargers.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Batteries Included podcast. It's September the 15th, 2023, and this is episode number 3. Thank you very much for joining us. On today's show, we'll be talking about Kyle trying to kill the Kia EV6 GT on the Autobahn, a Tesla Model 3 actually burning down on the highway, the debut of the Peugeot E-3008 from Stellantis, and of course, much, much more. I'm Dominic Yoni, host of the YouTube channel Drive Electric with Dominic. Joining us today is the highly esteemed Mr. Tom Moloughney, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have the mellifluous Mr. Martin Lee from the EV News Daily podcast, which is available on all the best podcast platforms. And of course, we have Kyle Connor, who joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Autospec Studios, where he produces high-voltage videos for a number of YouTube channels. Hi there, everybody. Good to see you all.
Hello, you guys.
And especially you, Martin. It's
from
really
the comments, everyone's happy to see Martin.
Hey, that's good. Well, it's great to see you guys, and it's great to be here. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when I came on the show that we were adopting a baby girl, and that's it's 2 weeks today that she moved in. And so my wife Emma has just taken her out to go see Nanny because my wife's mum is down staying. She lives about an hour away, but she's down in the area, so they've gone to see Nanny or Grandma, and I get the time to come and say hi to you guys, and more importantly, the viewers as well, and the listeners to the podcast, to say thank you for your support. I had some amazing messages, and people saying, "Oh, you're doing a wonderful thing, adopting a child that didn't have a home." And hey, it's entirely selfish because she's gorgeous. I'm in love, and I've just seen the next 16 years of my earnings disappear like that. She already looks at me out the side of her eye and smiles, and I'm like, oh no, because I've got a son as well, and he's 5, and like I'm really harsh on him. Pick that up, don't do this. And I'm, as a little girl, I'm already the such a cliche dad of being like, oh, you poor little thing. So thank you so much for all the messages. Amazing. So lovely to know there's an amazing community of people out there, and thank you so much.
Right on. Awesome. Hey, so let's start by talking about Kyle's attempt to melt down the Kia EV6 GT on the German Autobahn. So, Kyle, you're back in Colorado, it looks like. Is that right?
Yes, just for 2 days, and then back on another trip.
Okay. So in your video on the Autospec Reviews channel, you refer to this as a thermal stress test. So the video is like almost an hour long, and I think you weren't even going to put it out, but I certainly enjoyed it. So I thought we'd talk about it just a little bit real quick. So the Kia EV6 GT is the spiciest version of the car. It puts out 576 horsepower and 546 pound-feet of torque. Goes from 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. Has a top speed of 161. So maybe just talk us about the parameters of this test, and since it involves charging as well as some fast driving, and tell us maybe if it actually can do 161, or if you found out the
yeah, it does a little bit more than that, which is good.
Okay.
It basically matches Taycan on top speed, which is great. So you're like 165, something like that. But I'm surprised we're talking about this on the podcast, because I thought this was a pretty lame video. I even put in the comments, like I wasn't going to post this one because it just dragged on. It was more of a test for me as someone who's interested in performance electric vehicles, which, to be totally transparent, is not really our audience. They're efficiency minded, save the environment. I'm just I just want to go fast in an electric car. And so, I thought it was an interesting topic to see how much abuse it could take. And we've done this a couple times in other videos and other ways to look at the thermal, envelope that a car can operate in, and how it can handle it. And, part of this car being an EV6 GT means it needs to do sporty stuff. And so, we did, deep charging session, high speed driving down the Autobahn, full send, back to charging, back to the Autobahn, just to see what would happen and how it would do. And honestly, the car performed so well. It was unbelievable in my eyes as to how well it handled just being thrashed down the highway at top speed for seemingly, time on end. Yeah, we overheated it. That was the point of the video. You can overheat every electric car for the most part. And but it just took forever. And I actually thought in some areas did better than Taycan, which was really great. Now, I haven't had a chance to get my Model S Plaid on the Autobahn because that's on this side of the pond. However, one thing I thought was cool was Tesla offered us a Model S Track Pack press car, which I didn't even know Tesla does press cars. So we'll arrange that soon and do that car, then see how that.
I've got friends here in Tesla in the UK, and I speak to them, and they say, so and so magazine wants a car to go on a road trip this weekend with their family. The editor of a well-known magazine just called me. They want a car for the weekend. So I thought it was just the done thing, but I think Tesla in Europe operates differently to Tesla in the US. I know it does actually, and cars are available, and they reach out. I get emails. It's not from the PR department because obviously Tesla has no PR department. Elon Musk doesn't believe in that. I think they call them a different name, like influencer marketing or something. So yeah, it's cool. I mean, Tesla, I have a great relationship with them here, so that's different for you guys. Yeah.
So I just got distracted by this comment. Looks I don't know if this is real or not, but Nathan Green, who's a longtime viewer, says, I'm hearing through the grapevine there's already a stop sale on the new Blazer EV. Okay, interesting. Well, if you hear anything, let us know. So basically this was this Kia EV6 GT drive was to really check how well it dissipated the heat from the batteries or the inverters and the motors. So I guess you're saying it did really well? Like, was there any throttle, any?
Oh yeah, we overheated it for sure. Mostly through the charging process. The thing is, when the car is stationary and it can charge so fast, there is a lot of waste heat in this situation. And so we noticed some derated charging sessions. But actually for the driving portion, even after a derated charging session, which is keeping the cells pretty much at max temperature, we were able to jump out on the highway and get pretty much right up to top speed. And, maybe we'd lose that, full 570 horsepower, whatever it can do. But we'd get, maybe 300 and something. And it was pretty good. Overall, I thought the car was really amazing. And, for a performance car, for me, I was really thinking like the Ioniq 5N. I've really got my eye on this car because I think it looks cool. It's going to be even spicier than this car. It's going to have even extra cooling over this car. I believe a secondary compressor for cooling, which will be really interesting. So I thought, well, I had the EV6 GT. Let's see if we can melt this one. And if we couldn't, or if it performed really well, that bodes great for Ioniq 5N. And it also just shows you they didn't make the car fast just for that initial 0 to 60 time figure. This thing can perform over a long period of time as well. So yeah, not something we need to spend a lot of time on, but it was interesting to push it to its limits and to see how it handled. And I think myself and all of the viewers were really blown away and impressed with this package for the price.
A friend of mine said it had too much power.
Really? I mean,
he owned one.
3.4 seconds is quick.
He said it was too much. It was just too much, too uncontrollable for everyday driving. And he owns an i4 M50. He's owned performance cars. He didn't get on with just the GT.
Yeah, I could see him saying that because the car is not stable. It's not like tuned for the power. You can tell they took a EV6 and just cranked it to 12 because the normal EV6 I think only does 180 kilometers an hour. This does 270, so almost 100 kilometers an hour faster. And it's it's fairly unstable at top speed. The car is not built for that. You can tell. You get into a Porsche on the Autobahn, you don't slow for the corners. That thing is flat. It's amazing. You can do 160 miles an hour around a corner. This thing, I'm full regen pedal on the brakes, turning, slightly unstable. What that means, though, is like when you get it on a back road, it's really fun and tossable and lively and exciting. And, I think it's worth the compromise of the high speed stability for the low speed fun that you don't really get in the Taycan, to be honest. So, yeah, I thought this was, the Kia engineers, it comes just down to this eGMP platform is awesome. And they really put some great tech in this car, really put some great performance in this car. I think their software still sucks. They really need to improve the software. Like the whole integration of the experience is terrible. There is no integration. It's like the UI is completely separate from what else is going on in the car. Route planning doesn't work, no plug-in charge, all these little things. So yeah, that's my main issue with it.
Okay, right on. Okay, so let's go from you trying to burn down a car to a car actually burning down. So Tom, you came across some news the other day. So this is something I didn't even know that could actually happen. Like it's happened before in the past with like a Tesla Model S, but it's happened here with a Model 3. So I don't know, just fill us in. What's going on here with the Tesla Model 3 burning down somewhere?
Yeah, so I got a call not yesterday, the day before, from a good friend of mine who's a first responder. And he was kind of like, hey, you have any interest in this? And he showed me a quick video. And I'm like, hell yeah, what's going on? So he said, look, it seems like this is a 2022 Tesla Model 3. Guy was driving down the highway, said he hit something. Didn't know what he hit, but he hit something. And then shortly after that, started getting warnings on the display screen saying, malfunction, pull over, exit the vehicle, whatever. I don't know exactly what it said, but that was the gist of what he told me. And then so the person pulled over, called the fire department or called the police or the fire department and started smelling smoke, had time to collect his stuff, get out of the vehicle. And then the smoke got worse. The fire started in the front of the vehicle. And fire departments came down and took them. It was a bear to handle because it just wouldn't go out. They just kept, pouring water on it, and it would seemingly be, under control, and then it would flame up again. It was a typical case of thermal runaway, which happens with electric vehicle battery packs. The batteries can actually produce their own heat and their own oxygen. So you can't get it knocked down and then, okay, it's down, the temperature's down. It's not going to reignite like a normal car. The battery itself will just create its own heat, make its own oxygen. You can't smother it and flame up again. And that's what happened. And we talked a little bit about how much more expensive it is for the first responders. And he was like, just compared to a regular fire, we had like 5 times the amount of people here. It took us 5 times as long. We used so much more resources. The fumes are actually worse than regular combustion vehicle fumes. They're more toxic, and he was just like, we've got to figure out a way of handling this better, and as we get more and more electric vehicles on the road, I'm sure there's companies out there figuring out ways of doing it. We've seen in Europe, they're experimenting in some areas with like the truck pulls up and it's a giant tanker of water and they pick the EV up and just dunk it in. Out in Arizona, what they do is in some areas, they pick up the vehicle kind of similarly and put it in a dumpster and pour sand on it. And then they keep it under the sand for a day or two. So we're still trying to figure out if somebody typed foam. The foam doesn't work, Tom. They're trying to figure out what the best way is doing this. The good thing, what happened on this, it burned so badly, the whole battery tray dropped out of the vehicle, which was actually a good thing because then they could pick up the vehicle, drag it onto a tow truck and take it away, and then scoop up all the batteries and put them in drums and then isolate the drums if they reignite at some point. Because there's been instances where they've knocked the fire down multiple times on the cars. They're convinced it's out. Tow truck comes, they put it on a tow truck, and then it catches on fire on the tow truck a half an hour later on the way to the yard, and then the tow truck burns down. So, I mean, there's a lot of concern about electric vehicle fires, rightfully so. The general public doesn't understand them. Everybody sees these things. They make the news because they're so unique, and they assume they're more likely to catch on fire, but it's not true. The truth of the matter is they're much less likely to have a fire. And when you do have a fire, you typically have a lot of time to get out of the vehicle. It doesn't burst into flames unless there's a catastrophic accident where it's like what happened with that actor with the Porsche that slammed into a tree at 100 miles an hour. They died instantly because it burst into flames. That could happen with an EV, but in most instances, you're going to have enough time to get out. The big problem with electric vehicles is for the first responders and what happens to the vehicle afterward. It's not necessarily for the retail customers, but people read in the news a lot. Tesla goes on fire, they can't control it for 5 hours, and they're just thinking, oh my God, I'd never want to drive anything like that. It's so unsafe, but that's actually not the truth. So I put out a video. I'm going to put it out today on State of Charge, and I talk a little bit about fire safety. I have a lot of extended video on this fire in that. So I talk about the Tesla fire first, then I talk about, how EV fires are dealt with and why you really shouldn't be concerned about getting an EV.
So there's a few questions in the comments here. Smidge asks, do we know the chemistry of this battery? So I believe you said it was a 2022, right?
Yeah, so it's Model 3, so that would have been the 2170 cells. Yeah. Here's a 2170 cell here, and it would have been the nickel cobalt manganese cells, so which have a higher propensity to have thermal runaway. The big problem, the reason why is that they have a lower ignition point. The NCM battery packs will ignite and have thermal runaway at around 300 degrees Fahrenheit. The LFP packs go up to between 500 and 600 degrees before they have thermal runaway. So they're a little bit less likely to happen where you put the fire out and then it reignites.
And the LFP packs are prismatic cells, right? In the Model 3 standard range, they're like the bricks. Is that they're not the pouch cells?
We don't get those in the US, I don't think, right?
Yeah, we don't. I don't think they're here. Kyle might know better than me.
Canada,
I don't think we have the LFPs in Model 3s here.
Oh, you don't get that in
Kyle? I'm not even sure. I'm staying on top of it.
You're asking if we get LFP Model 3s?
Standard range.
Oh,
the standard range.
Yeah.
And
okay. I haven't stayed on top of that. I know the Y has it.
Oh, right.
No, so the Y doesn't get it here.
Okay.
So the Y is all 2170 NMC. Only the base 3 is LFP.
But so the Y is where they first started using LFPs in China, right? Or no?
I don't know which was the first product, but that sounds. I think 3 was the first that they started doing in Shanghai with LFP.
I had that confused.
Those are the CATL cells. But if people are wondering how we know what the chemistry is, because you can see in this picture lots and lots of little tubes of the 2170s that Tom just showed you, and that's not the format, the physical format of how they package LFP chemistry. So we know it's not the lithium iron phosphate stuff, because I think the Tesla is the prismatics, they're like bricks or old VHS tapes or something. So we would know looking at this but these are the cells. These are the cylinders.
The LFP wouldn't burn in the same behavior.
No.
Yeah, I show in my video clearly they knock the fire out, and then the next thing you start to see it smoke, and it smokes more and more, and then poof, it ignites again, and they got to run back over and start pouring the water on it. So it was a bear to put out, and it uses a lot more resources, and it's something that first responders are struggling with.
Wow.
Interesting. Well, so you have a video coming out later today discussing this. I think, Kyle, you said something. You might have a video around a similar fire suppression technology, I believe, coming out sometime soon, maybe in the future.
Yeah, I don't know when. No time.
Okay. But we may actually do another episode here with us, maybe sometime next week, about just fire safety and dealing with fires in EVs and all that stuff. And they're actually
Tom, these people. Can we get them on the show to talk about what it was like?
I'll ask.
That would be nice.
I don't know.
Yeah,
there's a lot of rules with, what you're allowed to talk about. I was surprised that they actually afforded me the opportunity to show this. And John checks asking about where's the video online. John, it's nowhere. I am the only one that has it. And it will be on my State of Charge channel soon. And you're seeing it here first on Batteries Included. No, these videos hasn't been released yet.
That's why we put a watermark on the photos, because if someone can use them and screenshot them and put it on another EV website if they want to, but we just didn't. That's Tom sourced this story directly, and so this isn't just out there on the internet somewhere. So,
right. Well, it's all kind of weird because it does say a lot about good things about the Model 3 too, because this happened really early on with the Tesla Model S, as I mentioned. Somebody ran over I think it was like a 3 three-sided tow hitch kind of deal, like a.
Yeah. That was one of the things that made it happen. Multiple Model S's hit multiple items and went on fire.
Right.
But the one that broke the straw that broke the camel's back was that one. Because then Elon got involved and started saying it impaled the Model S. It had no chance. It actually lifted the vehicle up, to Tesla's credit, they immediately acted on that. And they installed a series of parts, a titanium shield and an aluminum tube on the front to deflect items under. That's all in the video that I'm putting out today. And so my first thought in my head was, geez, do the Model 3s and Model Ys have this same Achilles heel that the Model S's have? A small area in the front where if you hit something just right, it's going to penetrate it. But then I started saying, when the Model S had the problem, it was in the very beginning. There are a few thousand Model S's on the road. So there was an extremely high percentage of fires with the little amount of model. This was back in 2013 and 2014 that Tesla had the problem, and they corrected it early in 2014. So, but then I said, you know what? There's 4 million Model 3 and Model Y collectively out there in the world now. And we haven't seen this happen to a high degree. So I'm leaning on the side of saying this was a unique incident where something just hit the right spot. It was the right type of debris that hit the right spot, and it caused this to happen. Unlike what happened with the Model S, where we had 3 or 4 fires in the first few months of them being launched, and that was a problem there. And Tesla quickly corrected it. I don't think that's the issue with 3s and Ys.
Right. So the Model 3 packs and Y packs are a lot different from the Model S packs. So the Model 3 packs, the cells are like, there's all of this, like, I think it's fire suppressing foam too, right? It's all surrounding the cells in those 2170 packs. Kyle,
I'm fairly certain that has some sort of, helpfulness in that situation, but, hard to say exactly, what happened here and how it all came to this, and be great to talk to the driver as well and see what they have to say.
Sure.
Do they know what they hit as well? Like that's interesting. Did they see something in the road or just hear a noise or something like that?
Stuff happens really fast on the highway sometimes, And
I wonder how often Tesla take these vehicles back. So I mentioned to you guys on our group chat this week, I remember a story from years ago where a guy had his Tesla go up in flames and it made the press, and he blamed Tesla and these new electric cars, they go up in flames, and Tesla took the car back and found a bullet in the pack, and it turned out he discharged a weapon in the vehicle and was found guilty of that. He was like, oh yeah, you got me. And it's like, oh, come on. So I wonder how many times now that Tesla
caused the problem. I had no idea,
shooting a battery, but didn't admit to it because he knew he'd get in trouble. And I wonder, like, now Tesla's not a small kind of niche car maker anymore. Now they're Model Y is the number 1 car in the world. Whether they even bother anymore, like, but if they see this, like, they know it happens because they got the telemetry. Whether they even seek to get any vehicles back to learn, or whether they're just too busy scaling and getting bigger and bigger because they know they've got to the point of safety now. Whereas I guess in the early days they just had to check, and I'm sure they found some stuff they improved and fixed. I wonder whether they follow up on these kind of things and want the vehicle back if they can buy it off the insurer, or I mean, as Tom said, it's wrecked. The battery pack dropped down. There's very little to give away what could have punctured it.
Yeah, exactly. And let me have a disclaimer here. Everything I spoke about here hasn't been published and proven to be correct. This is what I've gotten from my source, that he hit an object and he pulled over and, smoke, then fire. It could prove that somehow somebody got something wrong. Okay. That's, nothing's been announced and published yet. So this all just happened, and as far as I know, nobody's talked about it, but I have. And I honestly, if I didn't get this exclusive pictures and photos, I probably wouldn't have, because fires happen all the time with gas cars, and they're going to happen with electric vehicles on occasion. But since I had this unique opportunity, I said, let me take this time to talk about EV fires, EV fire safety, and if you need to be concerned about buying an EV. I mean, hell, I bought a Chevy Bolt. So, and I mentioned that in the that's the battery pack. I mentioned that in the video. So, I don't just, talk the talk. I put a Chevy Bolt in my garage at night and let it charge. So, but then again, I'm the guy that drove in the backseat of a Ford Pinto in 5 years for 5 years in the 70s. So maybe I just need to live on the edge.
If you can survive that, you can survive anything. Brilliant.
Oh my God.
I love it.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Anything else we need to talk about this? Or we put the themes out?
Just to say to the our viewers and listeners, if they have any questions, you can either leave it in the live chat now or the comments, because we're doing a slightly different thing with this version of the show, in that we are then able to just do a little bit of work on the podcast and then upload it as a video on YouTube, rather than just letting the live stream kind of sit there. So we take this live stream down, so we lose the live comments, but feel free to, we will keep the comments, or in the comments below, any questions that you've got about fires, anything you're curious about, and we'll try and find some experts to put them to. So please leave us your thoughts, your questions, your observations, and we'll do a special show about that.
All right. So I guess let's talk about what's else has been happening in the EV world this week, starting with the debut of the Peugeot E-3008. So they don't sell the Peugeot brand in the US, but I want to talk about it because this is the first EV from Stellantis to sit on the STLA Medium platform. And so we should see sedans and crossovers from maybe Jeep or Chrysler with similar specs and powertrain configurations coming here eventually. So just to touch on the styling real quick, the Peugeot refers to the E3008 as a fastback SUV. So it has a rake to the rear roofline that's even more dramatic than what we've seen on a couple on the coupe style SUVs. It's 178 inches long, so about 4 inches shorter than the Nissan Ariya. It comes with either a 73 kilowatt hour battery or a 98 kilowatt hour pack, and it's a 400 volt system. So the motors are permanent magnet synchronous, and it comes in the front wheel drive or all-wheel drive with the smaller battery. The large battery version only comes with front wheel drive. So I suspect the big battery has to push into the space where the rear motor would be mounted usually. So with the 73 kilowatt hour battery, the front motor puts out 210 horsepower, where it gets 230 horsepower with a bigger battery. The rear motor is smaller; it adds 111 horsepower. So the range with the big pack is pretty great. 435 WLTP miles. So the EPA would probably rate that somewhere in the high 390s, I think. Range for both single and dual motor with the small battery is the same 326 WLTP miles, which indicates it has a rear disconnect system on that rear motor. So you can put it in, but you can put it in four-wheel drive mode, which keeps the rear motor engaged if you want to, but only up to 83 miles an hour. So peak DC charging is 160 kilowatts with the 73 kilowatt hour battery. And they say it can charge from 20 to 80% in 3 minutes under the right circumstances. They don't say what the peak power is on the bigger battery, but only that it charges from 20 to 80 in less than 30 minutes, which indicates like a better charging curve. I suspect. I think I'd say if they didn't say what the peak power is, it's probably the same, and then they just extend the curve of the battery. They just allow the power levels to stay high, deeper into the charge. And finally, it does have a vehicle to load and can put out 3 kilowatts of power. So, Tom, that's a bunch of info. But any thoughts about this car or guesses what this platform might underpin when it comes to the US?
So, first, talk about the appearance. I really like this. That's kind of right in my wheelhouse. Front's a little chunky. That's the only thing that bothers me a little bit, but I like it. I like the rear. It reminds me of the I-Pace rear end a little bit. That's the first thing I saw when I saw the rear. I haven't studied the stats, to be honest with you. I just looked at the pictures, the visuals, and really just looked at range and charging more than the performance. But I think Stellantis, and I've been really down on Stellantis for a while, and maybe because we don't really see what Stellantis has been doing here in the U.S. as much, other than the fact that they own the Chrysler brand. I think that they're on the verge of really transforming the company into electrification. I think they get it, and I not just guessing that. I've talked to people that in the industry recently that have kind of said, just keep an eye on Stellantis the next 4 or 5 years. They've got some really good things going. I think one of the first steps is this new platform that they're going to be using here. So, without being able to drive it, Peugeot brands, we don't get them here. Right. I haven't driven a Peugeot, haven't experienced a Peugeot since the early 80s when they were still selling cars here and my friends owned them. So it's hard for me to really get a feel for the brand other than what people tell me that are in the industry, see what they're working on. And I think Stellantis is on the verge of kind of where Volkswagen was before they announced that they were making this big wave. I think Stellantis, we're going to hear a lot of news on them. This particular vehicle, I can't get a feel for it without, sitting in it, driving it or whatever, but I like how it looks. And I think it's good statistics so far. I think they have some good stats put
well, here's a question I never thought I'd ask. Is 435 miles and a 100 kilowatt hour battery just too much in a family car like this? Like, they've got their current platform that they use is often 50 kilowatt hours, which is a little bit small. But does a family car like this, and Peugeot sells on price here, by the way, so value buyers, so family buyers, value buyers, same as Citroën, probably same as Renault. A lot of these brands have aspirations to be always move up, and then new entrants come in at the bottom like Dacia and stuff. But back in the day, like Hyundai and Kia. But still, they're brands that sell on value, on price, on discount, on getting a car in your driveway for the least amount of money possible. With the most respect to everyone that works at these companies, you're not buying a Peugeot badge in most cases, I would say. So a car like this, could it be cheaper if it had a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack? And it had 300 and something miles. That would still be really good. Are we over-speccing EVs now? I never thought ever I would say that.
Well, the small battery version is 73 kilowatt hours. So it's
perfect. That's the only one that they need.
And that's so that was just interesting. So Europe does this a lot. They sell a small battery version and a large battery version. They do that with a number of different vehicles. So and we kind of think of Europeans as not maybe driving as far as we do here in America sometimes.
Completely true.
And so I wonder what the uptake difference is over there compared to what it would be over here. So this is kind of interesting. I don't know.
That's what I was going to say. From a U.S. perspective, Martin, you can't, at this point in electrification, you can't have too much range in order to convince the buyers to get the vehicle. And it's hard for me to look at it through your eyes from a European perspective. But I know here in the U.S., you said, are they over-speccing it? Not for the U.S. market. Okay. But I could see, where you would say that for Europe for sure. Lower the price, give me a smaller battery, and I'm fine with that.
Simon has a good point here, which is why I hesitated as I was saying what I was saying, because yes, if I'm being historically correct, cars like Peugeot, like Citroën with their innovative suspension, they really were big luxury barges. They at times they have made wonderfully old luxury cars. So yes, that's kind of why I stopped myself halfway. But I think for the most part now, most modern Peugeots and Citroëns are sold on value. So yeah, historically, Simon's absolutely correct.
And look at brands like Kia that were a value brand, and now how much does a Kia EV6 GT cost?
61.
I think everyone's going upscale to a degree now, Martin, with the EVs, because they realize they can't. It's almost like they can't put out an inexpensive bargain vehicle, so they might as well make one that's nice. So that could be it also.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is going to be a European vehicle, so we don't need to talk about it too much, but we can.
How dare you? How dare you? It's all about European viewers.
I'm sorry, Martin.
No, actually, if you look at the stats of this podcast, it's all US viewers. I'm only joking.
It's but it's just still true. But we want to look at the whole world of EVs. Really, I mean, it's interesting what's going on in Europe and what's going on in China, and it'd be interesting to see what happens in there's EV companies in Africa even, but we don't really talk about or get much visibility about. Up and coming startup companies.
So how much is, like Cord says in the comments, how much is enough range? So I don't know what the answer is. Like it all depends on price. You could have a 4,000 mile EV, just tow a big trailer with a bunch of batteries. It's not about how big the pack is. It's about the whole, the package of price and efficiency and Tom, what was the range you got out of the Lucid when you did your range test on the Lucid 5?
5 exactly on the nose.
It was exactly 500. Yeah,
It's a lot of miles. But more
so,
than,
is that enough? Do you want 600? I don't know.
And how you can't ask the question how much range is enough without following it up with saying, well, how's the charging infrastructure? Because if we had ubiquitous charging that worked every time everywhere, then I think people could be driving around with 200-mile EVs just fine. If it was really easy and quick and seamless to charge it wherever you went. So I mean, I think that's a function of it, and that's why I've maintained that over the course of time, over the course of the next decade, I think the ranges are going to get shorter in cars because the infrastructure is going to get so much better. People won't need them, and they don't want to buy that 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. As Martin pointed out, they'll be fine with a 65 or 70 kilowatt hour pack, and just have to stop a little bit more frequently.
Well, Kyle, you and Alyssa just got back from Germany, or from being over here in Europe, and the charging is different, right? You just turn up and it works, and it's just, it's like you had some problems, but not a huge amount.
Yeah, certainly some. E.ON seemed to be the biggest offender. So I think everyone else has already called them this, but we just call them E-off now. So that was a poor experience. And yeah, a couple little bugs here or there, but then it's like I come back to the US and charge on EVgo yesterday. And, I go to set up Auto Charge Plus on my Rivian, and we're like 20 minutes into this process. Francie and I were trying to set it up, and it's just like isn't working. And then the session stops 4 minutes after starting to charge with no seemingly, no error code. I restarted it the same way, so it wasn't a billing issue. I was like, what is, welcome back to the US.
I haven't even set it. I don't plan on setting it up. If I do, it'll just be to see how it works and make a video, but then I'll disable it. I don't really need it.
Set up, it works great because then you don't have to deal with the stupid app to activate or tap your card.
I don't trust it yet.
Well, and if it doesn't work, you can just, then do it the old way. I use it all the time on my Model S with EVgo, and it works great. It's the initial setup that's a pain in the ass sometimes.
And there's no issue with billing on with using auto charge on EVgo as far as non-account versus account like Plug and Charge has on Electrify America, Kyle, where you can't use your account to get the discounted rate. It always bills at the higher rate. That's not the case with the auto charge with EVgo.
No, it goes to your.
It always goes through your app. Yeah.
Yeah. It goes through your app.
Yeah. Right. Whereas with the plug-in charge, the way it's set up now for all the companies, it goes through the company's app, not your network app.
Well, that depends, actually. There are some that do it natively on EA, and there's some like Ford that do it on the back end. And so, like with Ford owners, they have to pay more to plug and charge, is my understanding. And if you are a second-hand Ford EV owner, then you can't set up plug and charge. Is that still true, Tom?
I'm not sure if they updated that yet, to be honest with you. It's been very slow. Their plug and charge updates have been terrible.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. But EVgo.
How about Porsche with the plug and charge? Does that go through? I thought that went through the Porsche app also.
Yep, through the Porsche app. Yep, absolutely. But I'm trying to remember who doesn't. I feel like Mercedes goes directly through EA. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. If you have any of the cars with plug-in charge other than Ford that offer free charging, gets free charging when they do plug-in charge. Like Lucid, as an example.
Yeah, but some of them have run out. Like if you're a Taycan owner, you've had your vehicle for you could have your vehicle for 3 years now. The 3-year charging is over, Kyle.
No, not for Taycan yet, because that was just 2021. That started with plug and charge, and we haven't hit 24 yet. And the early 21s didn't have it, is my understanding, because 2020 Taycans don't plug and charge.
Right.
So we haven't seen what's going to happen with that yet, but something we should keep our eye on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Because I know as of a couple months ago, I know it would not it hasn't been solved yet. Where if it ended now, it would still revert back to the app and they'd pay a higher amount.
Right. So like in Europe, the way it works is you have at least with Porsche, you get the Porsche charging plan, which you pay 33 cents per kilowatt hour on like every network as part of your Porsche thing. And that's like one of the best deals out there. Yeah. And it works with everyone. And that has been amazing. And that's
I'd love to have something like that here.
Yeah, but the problem is our largest network, EA, will not roam with anyone. They just will not cooperate with ChargePoint, with EVgo, with Blink, any of these other companies to allow for roaming. Yeah. And so you just can't have one RFID card or one plug-in charge card that can do it all, unfortunately.
Remember when they announced like 8 years ago, no, not 8 years ago, about 6 years ago that was going to happen? They called it Rove EV. They started an alliance and everyone was going to play together and it was going to be all the major networks were on board. But I think the breakdown came with data sharing. I'm pretty sure that's why EA won't play with the other networks, because there's an issue over who controls the data.
Of course.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know the real reason why they don't, but they just, there's obviously a way, because Ionity does it. So there's got to be, if the Germans do it, we should be less cautious with data here historically. And so I don't know. I can't speculate.
Let's talk about a new car, or almost new car, new to the US. So we talk about a lot about expensive cars here. So it's nice to have something on the lower end of the market to discuss. So Hyundai has just released more details about the all-new Kona Electric. So overall, it's a bit better than the original in a number of ways. So like the original Kona, this one comes in both combustion and electric flavors. It's slightly larger than the first Kona, 5.9 inches longer with 3 more inches of rear seat room, which was sorely needed. 1 inch wider at 71.9 inches, and there's a scooch more headroom, like 0.4 of an inch or something. So this time it has 2 different battery sizes available in the US. So we're going to bring that discussion back about the Peugeot. So the small one holds 48.6 kilowatt hours. The previous standard size version of this battery was available in Europe, but not the US, and it was 39.2 kilowatt hours. So that's getting enlarged somewhat, if that's a word. But we didn't get that in the US. But we will be getting this 48.6 pack. The long range battery goes from 64 kilowatt hours to 64.8 kilowatt hours, so just a slight improvement there. The aerodynamics of the car are slightly better as well, and so it now gets 260 miles of range. The standard battery should offer 197 miles of range, but they're still waiting to hear back from the EPA to make that official. DC charging times are also a bit better, but still not great. With the big battery, it goes from 10 to 80% in 43 minutes. So yeah, that's about 15 minutes longer than would you really like to see. Power output is the same, 201 horsepower and 188 pound-feet of torque with the big battery. The standard battery version only puts out 133 horsepower and 188 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 isn't mentioned, but it should be quite close to the original at 6.4 seconds. The standard battery version will be slower, of course, but probably under 8 seconds. The Kona Electric now has a vehicle to load as well with an adapter, like its eGMP stablemates like the Ioniq 5. So we don't know what the total output of that V2L adapter will be in watts, but it can dish out up to 16 amps. So the big question here now is price, and it's not mentioned yet, but it will be interesting to see how low the standard battery version goes. The existing 2023 Kona Electric starts at $33,500. Kyle, do you think they'll charge a bit more than that for this new one, or do you think possibly the Tesla Model 3 still puts downward pressure on price in this part of the market as well?
Well, these cars have done really well in our market because of the value that you get. They were magically efficient. It's also a hatchback with a different look than Model 3. I know a lot of Kona EV owners. Actually, my dad has owned 2 of these. And, back early days of EV, he had Bolts and Konas, and he was playing around with these cars. And they really are great cars. There were some issues with the early batteries in them. My uncle actually has one that he like freaked out. He's like, I can't park it in my garage, and like, don't bring it near the house because he was afraid it was going to burn down. It actually broke down on him a few times. Okay, so maybe the track record for him personally hasn't been great, but I think the reliability of the car as a whole has been awesome. The batteries just don't seem to degrade. They hold great range, and now you have updated styling. Now I think it looks worse. Right. And I actually prefer the original facelift of the Kona. This is now the third facelift of this car. Right. And this is really a new platform, if you will. It's longer, all these things. But I actually think the one to go for is the previous in terms of styling. I think 2022, they did an update to it, 2021, 22. Anyway, yeah, cars are solid. I don't think it's a real, certainly on paper, it's a competitor to Model 3 and Model 3 smokes it, but I don't really see the owners cross-shopping them. And if they can keep it in the 30s and you can get a lease and you can bake in the tax credit on the lease, then yeah, maybe we're getting somewhere.
I'm wondering if the standard range version of this car will be under 30s in the 20s.
It would be incredible if they could get a 29.9 on a small SUV electric car that is going to be fine for 90% of use cases. That's, has proven reliability. It's a platform that's been out for a while. That would be amazing.
I love mine. I love in the summer, it reads 300 and something miles. Genuinely, I do a lot of motorway miles as well. And it sits very happily at 4 point something miles per kilowatt hour if the weather's a little bit warmer. I don't think mine hasn't even got a heat pump. I think all these new ones come with a heat pump, at least in the European market. I think ours got more expensive on the list price by maybe £700 or £1,000 when this new version came out over here. So I think it had a small price bump. So what was the US pricing? $33,500 at the moment. So yeah. But you don't know. Different market, different teams, different decisions on the market and stuff. So look, this is a great car, and it all depends on price. And this brings me back to the Bolt and the Bolt EUV. Is it still going at the end of the year? I know we're talking about the new Bolt and the new EUV on with the Ultium technology, but that wasn't an overnight flick the switch, was it? That wasn't like on January 1 that car arrives. That's like, in a couple of years' time, the Bolt will come back with Ultium stuff. So it just seems like an open goal with that vehicle going. I don't know what Hyundai is really competing with, like Kyle says, maybe a nearly new Model 3. Not much else. Like, right. I wish the Bolt wasn't going. The Bolt's such good value for money.
Absolutely. And that was my thought immediately, was that this is going to get a boost by the Bolt going away. And the new Bolt, Martin, isn't going to come for a while, years before that would be available. So, the Hyundai has an opportunity here to grab some of the previous people that might have been interested in a Bolt, because there are no lower priced, EVs at this point right now. I mean, Tesla is doing the best of anyone by pushing down the prices of the Model 3. It's tremendous value, but not everybody wants a Model 3. This is going to be, I think the Kona is going to benefit from that. And as far as styling goes, I kind of agree with Kyle. I like the previous version's front end better, but I might like the rear end on this new design a little bit more. So I wish I could have it, the front end of the previous, the refresh, but the rear end of this. But, I think, and as far as charging, it doesn't charge well, but for a lot of people, and as Kyle said, 90% of the people, it won't matter. I was just talking to somebody, a Kona owner, the last time I was at an EA station about this. And I was like, does that put you off? And he was kind of like, not at all. It doesn't, I hardly ever need to fast charge, he said. And when I do, if I'm here an extra 15 minutes because it doesn't pull, and he knew about charging and everything, he goes, let's say this thing pulled 175 kilowatts, or like the new, the Ioniq 5s, I could charge to 80% in 20 minutes. That means I'm here 20 minutes less. You know what, for once every 3 or 4 months that I need to use this, I can wait 20 minutes. It really is no big deal to me. It was a real pragmatic answer. He was just like really, I know that's what you do. So you stress over every minute of cutting your DC fast charge because you knew who I was. He's like, but honestly, he goes, you guys stress too much about shaving off 5 minutes on a DC fast charger. He goes, for most people, there's going to be a percentage of the population where it matters to, but for most people, you know what, it just means a few more sips of their cup of coffee before they can unplug and take off.
Yeah, and you know what, I just unplug at 50%. and just move on. I tried to get a picture last time I was charging about how deep into the pack it slowed down, because I did a bit of a trip the other day, and it just hung at 70-something kilowatts for ages. Maybe the pack was just the perfect temperature and nice and warm. I've got the existing one, obviously, not this brand new one. And yeah, it didn't slow down till, you can't see that, but 66%, and it went down to whatever that is, 56 kilowatts. And then it dropped, but that's into the 60%. And I just unplugged and carried on, because I don't need to hang around at that slow speed, but it does bump up 70, 75, 77 for ages on mine if the pack is happy. And it is the middle of summer. The only thing wrong with mine, back seats are too small, and I've got a 5-year-old and a 15-month-old now. So I got 2 kids seats. Back seat's too small. I got to change it. We were joking before we went live. I was actually looking at prices of the EQV, which I can't afford, but I need a van. I need to be a cliche. I need to get a van or something. And
the Zeekr minivan.
Oh man, I'd love anything an MPV that's electric, that with more room. The back seat's far too small, because as you say, the smaller the baby, the bigger the car seat, and the boot's the boot's ridiculous. It's just there's just nothing to it. So just looking for stuff. Our market's collapsed over here. Yeah.
What way?
Oh, the last 6 months. Oh, I mean,
like a sales or the prices, or
just the used prices. They were strong. Strong. And then the last 6 months, maybe more than maybe 8 months.
Martin, why don't you go for a used e-tron?
Yes, used e-tron, 32
That's
grand.
the move.
So we call it the S-line spec. What do you call it? The one with
we didn't really get that until later model years,
right?
But I have the Q8 e-tron on test right now. And I also have our e-tron, which is a 2019. And I think we paid 68, 70 grand for ours. I think it's worth 31 right now. We've only put less than 10,000 miles on it. So that is the buy of the century. You get massaging seats. Go for a top spec. Spend an extra couple grand. Get everything, all the glazing on the windows. And you have an awesome charging curve. Best charging curve in the business. It's very inefficient, but who cares with the charging curve? And they're so quiet and comfortable. That is the move. Yeah, we have a Prestige. That's what I would recommend someone to get, at least in the US.
So I saved this one last night as I was looking at it. 17,000 miles on a 2020. So we have 2 registrations a year. So we have a 70 plate. So it's on a 70 plate, 2020. It's not the absolute top spec, but it's like, come on camera, 31,379. Like
pound, wow, British pounds, I guess we're talking.
Yeah, like 32,000 pounds. And
that's
I'm
amazing.
like, I was looking at Tesla Model 3s only a few months ago that were that, and standard range Model 3. Right. I mean, refresh pack, so with the new interior, the heat pump and stuff, and all the goodies. So from a 21 onwards, that was. But I'm like, well, it's not comparable. I don't do massive road trips. As Tom says, I'm not chasing charge time stops. And the e-tron is a beast anyway at charging, but that wouldn't even be a consideration in my head. I'd get the Audi every day of the week. But now the Model 3s are 27, 28, and the e-tron's 32. But
it's still worth the extra money. You get an SUV, you get so much more car. And the interesting thing is, assuming chargers work, we have a Model 3 and an e-tron. They are the almost identical road trip time between the both cars. Obviously the e-tron consumes more. The Model 3 is more efficient and has a higher peak charging, but just that flat charging curve of the e-tron, you unplug it 82% and then you can just rip. It's great.
But that car I was looking at would have been 42 or 45 not so long ago. So, I know that I've got to sell. I still got the MGs at SEV. It's got to sell that. We have to sell the Kona, I guess. But so everything is relative, isn't it? So I'd get less money for those. But you get a lot of EV now for low 30s. An e-tron, that's crazy.
I know. I was looking at them myself like last week, and there was some nice ones. I think I put something on Facebook or something. I just found a nice example with low mileage in the low 30s. And I was like, oh man.
They're very spec dependent. Like you have to find the right options and do all the stuff. But when you find the one that fits in, it's not like it's much more expensive than the really low spec ones as well.
Right. All right, so let's move on a little bit. So also this week, we saw some results that were pretty interesting from the first independent real-world test of the Tesla Semi and a number of other commercial trucks. So 10 companies are participating in this North American Council for Freight Efficiency's Run on Less program. You can find it at runonless.com. The vehicles involved include the Ford E-Transit, the Nikola Tre, Freightliner E-Cascadia, there's a bunch here, the International EMV box truck, the Volvo VNR semi-tractor, the Motive delivery panel van, the MT50E, the Motive delivery panel van is one thing. The MT50E, which is a Freightliner chassis with a Proterra powertrain. There's also some BY Class 8 tractors in there, and the Orange EV terminal style tractor. So that's a wide range of commercial vehicles. So basically, they're tracking the energy usage and charging over the course of the vehicle's workday and laying out the results in graphs. So there's just a ton of that data to check out. I think we're on day 5 right now, and it's going to go on for, I think, 18 days. And for each vehicle, they put how much it's traveled in that day, how it's charged, and there's graphs of the charging and the distance and the battery, how the battery discharges its energy. So there's just a ton of data to check out. But it was interesting to see some of the distances that the Tesla semi trucks in particular were traveling in a day. And because they're with, I believe, Pepsi in this particular testing thing. So they have just longer routes or more routes. So the biggest day was like 106 miles for one of these things traveled during the course of its workday, which of course involves some charging. It didn't do that on a single charge, of course. I think it was Tesla number 3, day 4, but I'm not positive which one that was. I found it like at 2 a.m. last night. So Kyle, I guess, have you heard about this?
Yeah, I had heard about this, and we're doing a out of spec podcast on this topic as well. And one thing I thought would be kind of interesting to share this anecdotal piece of information with you.
Yeah.
The other week, I was driving the Polestar out to Monterey Car Week to California, and on this stretch, going over the Donner Pass just east of Sacramento between Reno and Sacramento, we passed 4 Tesla semis, all commercial working trucks.
Nice.
Yeah, in one stretch. It was awesome.
Yes, I haven't seen any over here. Of course, I'm on the east coast of the country.
They're not outside of that area, is my understanding at the moment.
Okay. They're in serial production now, though, right?
Yeah, they have been.
Yeah.
And you see them anytime you drive on I-80, you'll pass them testing. So they're pulling in and out. I think they do like a final drive loop before they get delivered. But you can pretty much guarantee if you want to see a Tesla semi, you just park somewhere off of the Donner Pass, off an exit or an overpass, wait 30 minutes, and you're guaranteed to see 1 or 2 drive by.
Sweet. All right. So I'm not sure if there's anything else we can really get into that. Maybe we can talk about this more once they're finished and can compile the results of all that data. But I could spend. I got a little carried away last night looking at that stuff. You can spend sort of a lot of time. There's a lot of data there. All right.
I'll jump in and tell you about a story that I reported on EV News Daily podcast this week, and that is the Volvo trucks. The customer was the Dutch-Danish, Danfoss, and their trucks run 24 hours a day because they got DC fast charging. The loading and unloading is 15 minutes, which is what they need to get back to the right amount. The trip length is the right amount, and so they slow charge them at the weekends. They run their depots. They run. They've got bidirectional AC chargers on them. So at the weekends when they're not doing the runs, they run their yard off them and then recharge overnight cheap, and then discharge during the day. And then but Monday to Friday they run 24 hours a day. And who says that electric doesn't work for commercial trucking? This use case, they only stop for 15 minutes when they're loading and unloading, and they're charging. And actually over here as well, there's all sorts of rules and regs on drivers' time and downtime and when. So it absolutely works for commercial trucking. It 1,000% does. So don't believe anyone that says only hydrogen works for trucking. EVs absolutely work.
Oh, definitely. I think so. And this is just the beginning, right? As we say from, on the regular, batteries are going to get smaller, lighter. We'll be able to put more batteries in a truck space and charge faster. There we go. Volvo and Danfoss introduced the first 24-hour e-truck fleet. I didn't see this.
It's great. It's another use case of just EVs just work.
I need to listen to EV News Daily every day.
we passed 1,900 episodes this week, 5 and something years of doing a daily EV podcast. I've sort of lost my sanity a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I did actually listen to part of an episode a couple of days ago. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's great. I love it, actually. That's why I should listen to it every day because it's awesome. Yeah.
Volvo's also getting into heavy equipment. Electric heavy equipment. They're definitely and that's even a more unique case. How do you recharge a big bulldozer or bucket loader on site of a construction site? With the trucks, they're moving, they're going to different places. As long as you have chargers along the routes, you can do that. But when you're building a new building somewhere and you've got some machinery there, is it going to be mobile charging that comes on site that charges it? Will there be some sort of a temporary high power install that the vehicles will be able to plug into, the machinery will be able to plug into? So that's going to be interesting. But I know they're going pretty heavily now into electric heavy equipment, construction equipment.
That's right. Interesting thoughts about, the infrastructure for that. Actually, I hadn't really put a lot of thought into that for construction sites. I guess it would depend on the length of time the construction will be taking place and what sort of, I guess, power they can get to the building or to the site.
And again, rules and regs over here in Europe, construction is absolutely crippled by noise regulations. And if you can swap out very loud machinery for something electric, which can run with no emissions, can run inside buildings, and you can still run those vehicles inside the basement of a building. You have to have very expensive extraction equipment. You want the working conditions to be safe for the men and women operating them. Electric makes so much sense in nearly every possible example you can think of. So Volvo have got 4 EV factories now making trucks, as in Volvo Commercial, 4, and they make their batteries in Ghent. So they've got 6,000 orders outstanding in 22 different countries or something. It's like
we just recorded a podcast on something they're working on where they're taking the used batteries and using them for stationary storage for DC fast charging hubs and other stuff. So they're trying to create this whole round trip efficiency where when the battery's done in the vehicle or it has an accident or something, do you recycle it or do you replace it? It hasn't gone up yet, but we recorded it yesterday, and so that'll be interesting to see.
Right on. Okay, let's move on real quick. I got another story I want to talk about here, unless you got something you want more to say, Martin? Okay. So this next bit is about an EV that Honda is about to start selling later this year for $995. So
I love this one. This one's the best. This is the best.
Right?
Finally, the affordable EV.
No, but it is so cool. I can't wait for everyone to see this.
So the Japanese automaker maker says it will be sold in conjunction with its all-new electric SUVs as a sort of last-mile vehicle. So back in the 80s, Honda sold a similar type of thing called the Motocompacto, which you could get with the Honda City, which wasn't sold here. So this one is called the Motocompacto. So it has a top speed of 15 miles an hour, a range of 12 miles, and recharges from 0 to 100, I guess, in 3.5 hours from a 110 volt outlet. So just like the name suggests, it's compact. The handlebars and seat all fold into the vehicle, making it super compact and easy to load into your electric Honda SUV. So it looks like a lot of fun to ride and probably safer than those stand-up scooters. But Tom, I don't know. What do you think about? Do you think people will be cool with these things on the streets and sidewalks?
So one thing I want to point out is with those small wheels,
Yeah.
I do not want to be going 15 miles an hour, the top speed on that thing. I had a Segway. You remember the Segways? I used to tool around Montclair with a Segway. When I owned my restaurant, I used to take it to go to the bank. And
How we need video of this actually, Tom, to make sure you're telling us the truth here. You have some video of you on your Segway?
No, I don't have video of that. But I used to drive all around Montclair. I used to like make bank runs and like just run to the supermarket and stuff. And that's top speed. I think it was similar to that. I think it was around 15 miles an hour. I forget. And it felt like I was going 50 miles an hour, on such a small thing when you're standing upright. And the wheels were bigger than these wheels. These tiny little wheels spinning at 15 miles an hour. You better be on a really smooth surface, because otherwise you're going to get thrown around. I think I'd probably keep it at about 10 miles an hour unless I was on like freshly paved road where it's nice and smooth. But I mean, that's that aside, super cool. Hey, Kyle, want to split? Want to buy one? We'll each throw in $500 so we could have one in our fleets and just take turns playing around with it. But
I'm ordering 10 of these things. I'm putting one in every car.
All right, then I'll just take one of yours for free. Just save me $500.
This is so cool.
It looks so good.
It is cool, and I definitely want to ride one around for certain.
Yeah. So, but have you been on the stand-up scooters, Tom? Those like the ones that you can just pick up on the side of the street in the city and start riding. Have you driven one of those things?
Yeah, I've actually used. I've used those when, believe it or not, like when I'm on some press drives and I'm in a city. I'm at the hotel and I want to run somewhere a couple miles away, and they'll have them like on the sidewalk, and I've used them for that. I actually do have video of that. I've never shown it, but I do have video of me, because I said I might as well just record a little video of me like scooting down the road on this thing. So I set my camera up and drove by it a few times. So yeah, I, in that regard, you're right. The wheels are about the same size. I was just going back more thinking about my time in the Segway and how if the surface wasn't very smooth, it was a very difficult, bumpy riding experience. You know what I mean? And maybe this would be a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, that's basically what this is, the scooter, except it's got that big packaging around it that makes it look, give it a different form. And that's great for those watching on YouTube now or watching us with the video. You can see the basic frame of it is like, one of those regular scooters that you can get, except it has this body around it. I guess that's not the battery, that whole body. Is that for storage? Or I wonder why they even have that.
It folds in on itself, so you need
the seat go in there.
For the handlebars in the seat, yeah. And I guess it'd be like a suitcase after that, right? You could pick it up and carry it. I think it only weighs about 40 pounds, right?
Yes.
I think it was about 40 or 41 pounds, which isn't bad.
Are at the bottom of the specs are at the bottom of the Motocompacto site, I believe.
But it's definitely cool. Can't wait to tool around in one of those. So
this reminds me, if I can do this here, I'm going to share this. This reminds me of this back in the early days of EVs, the second gen EVs. This thing came out. This person wanted to sell this, which is kind of similar kind of thing, but this was like a full kind of speed thing, but it's just that same like luggage, like suitcase sort of look to it, but it has bigger wheels. I just thought it was interesting that Honda brought out something so close to that eventually. But this is kind of small. Like I said, it's compact. I think it's like 2.5 feet tall and super cheap. Oh, Dave Kruger says, nice, but the Moto Chimp is way cooler. That's true. I don't know if we have an example of that. We can pull up real quick. I remember seeing Johnny driving the Moto Chimp on a video on his, what's Johnny's channel's name over there in the UK?
Yeah, he changed it, didn't he? Because it was Car Pervert, and he changed it to something else. But yeah, something a bit more sponsor friendly.
Right. I
think Late Break Show, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a Late Break Show.
Yeah, man, he just gets hundreds of thousands of views on that channel. He's such a good natural presenter as well. And but he rode this for the Fully Charged channel, so that was long before Johnny left Fully Charged. He rode it for that channel, and it was such a good video. I want to go watch it again now.
Yeah,
the Moto Chimp's also 4 times as expensive, so there's that to consider.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Anyway, we should probably move on, I guess, since we're really more about four wheels than two wheels. So two wheels are fun. So, all right. So last week, Kyle and Alyssa gave us our first look at the VW ID.X. And I just thought we'd share a couple pictures and some specs real quick this week, since we didn't get very into depth then, because we just, I guess they just happened across it. So this is quite likely the basis for the Volkswagen ID.7 GTX. That's the dual motor all-wheel drive version of the ID.7. It boasts 551 horsepower from a permanently excited synchronous motor on the rear axle and an additional asynchronous motor up front, which they say allows them to overboost the power for short periods. The rear axle also has a differential lock controlled by the vehicle's dynamic manager, which also manages the drive torque. Peak charging power is 200 kilowatts. So real quick, any thoughts on this, Kyle, since you've already also driven the regular Volkswagen ID.7?
Oh, well, this isn't real, just so you know. This is not a thing.
It's not going to be the ID.X?
No, the GTX is going to be so boring.
The GTX.
Yeah. No, that's going to have same as 330 horsepower and no big brakes and none of this stuff. Oh, yeah. This is no relation to anything that will come to market.
I thought it was kind of like paving the way to show us this, high performance, GTX ID.7. Maybe we wouldn't see a big spoiler on the back like this one, but.
No, nothing even closely related. The GTX is going to be boring. I mean, we were with Volkswagen when they unveiled the car. Obviously, right. I went to dinner with the guys after the podcast last week, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, it was fun to build it." They don't even know if it works. Okay. Like they haven't really even tested anything on it. They haven't driven it fast. So,
right. And they do say this vehicle will not go on sale, but
it doesn't mean it's not an indication that the GTX is going to be spicy. Don't expect anything like this.
Okay, well, then I feel I wasn't going to buy a Volkswagen ID.7 myself, but I still feel disappointed. I don't know why. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this is quite. That's what Volkswagen does. They come out with something that we really want, and then they disappoint us. All right. Okay, let's move on then. So
it reminds me, we should have a conversation at some point about Walter Isaacson's book about Elon Musk, because he had absolute access for 3 years to all of Elon's meetings, conference calls. He just followed him around to document Elon's life for 3 years. I can't wait to read that book, but the excerpts that we've heard from it already have been really interesting. And one of them, if you missed it in the week, was after the Cybertruck reveal. He then went to the engineers and went, "Make me something that moves so I can take it to dinner with Grimes in Las Vegas to get the world hyped." And they're like, "But we haven't built one that moves. We've built one to sit on stage and we can get a test vehicle for the journos on that one day." He's like, "No, get me something that drives." They're like, they had to go away and find some sort of mule, something that looked like a Cybertruck that also ran, because that wasn't the vehicle. I understand that the journalists and the influencers had to go in that day. I can't wait to read that book. I think is it out now? It's soon.
I'm not sure. I guess I should read it. I guess it's important,
Looks amazing. Some of the meetings that he was privy to around the design, he says all the detail, and Elon must have signed off on it, because the conversations that he had about having no no compromise on the Cybertruck styling, how there was a secret skunk works team at Tesla that were like, "Give him the Cybertruck, but we'll work on something real." And they went away and worked on what they thought would be the Cybertruck. And they're like, "Let him have his little play, but then we'll work on the real project." And he was like, "No, I'm deadly serious. I want it to be like this and made out of this and do this." And they went away and did a proper truck, which was never used.
Well, back when he first floated this idea of the Cybertruck, Elon did say, the styling was going to be way out there. So if it didn't really fly, they were going to do a regular style truck as well. So I guess they took him at his word.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Say, Tom, so you put out a video this week, speaking of Tesla, around the Tesla Universal Wall Connector, which can be used with non-Teslas and Teslas alike. So you put it through your freezing, dropping, and drowning process for your reviews that you do. And so what do you think? Is it the best EV charger available today, as you ask in your video question title?
Well, if it's not, it's pretty damn close.
Okay.
It's a really a good unit. It's on the wall behind me right here. And we talked about this a couple times when I did unboxing video and then an installation video. And now this was my full review because I had a chance to use it for a few weeks and really, put it through the paces. I also added a new test that I'm doing to my EV chargers, and that's an extreme heat test where I put a heat lamp on the unit and bake it for about 2 hours at 120 degrees before I plug it in. And then I plug it in and let it charge the vehicle at its maximum draw for 2 hours to see if it derates and measure the temperature and everything. It was running at, the body of the unit was running at about 160 degrees during the charging test, which is higher than its stated operating temperature of 122 degrees. So I'm still going to tweak this test a little bit. I think I need to get a second heat lamp and have it on the connector plugged into the car. So the connector is maintaining a high, excessive heat while it's charging the car. The way it is now, the connector got hot also. The connector was like 120 degrees when I plugged it into the vehicle, but then there was no heat lamp on the specific connector. So that's a new test I'm playing around with. A lot of my followers said, the cold weather test is great, but what about for us? We live in Arizona, and sometimes the chargers will derate if they get too hot. So I figured I have to figure out a way of doing a hot test. So I'm still tweaking that, but it passed it. It passed every test that I threw at it. It's a great unit. It's got a 4-year warranty. I think it's reasonably priced. You can order one now, but they're not going to start shipping until October. But, Tesla nailed it. All Tesla's charging equipment is actually very good. Everything they make, surprisingly, I shouldn't be surprised, but it's surprisingly good, the equipment. By far, the best charging equipment sold by any manufacturer that also sells cars. A lot of companies sell their own charging equipment, and some of it's pretty good. A lot of it isn't that good at all, but Tesla's equipment is fantastic. And now that you can use this to charge any EV, yes, Doug, you can mount it outside. We just had a question that we pulled up. It's NEMA 3 rated, so it's fine for outdoor use. It passed everything. The fact that you can now charge any EV with this, and that's really important as the industry transitions to the NACS connector, the Tesla connector. You may have a J1772 equipped EV now, but your next EV in 2 or 3 years might have a NACS connector on it, and you won't have to swap your charging equipment. You won't have to go out and buy an adapter. You can buy an adapter. You can use one of these. This would work just fine if you had a Tesla connector and you were charging your car. But now it just adds another level of complexity to this. Is just so elegant, where the adapter just naturally stays inside the charger. If you don't need the adapter, if you need it, you just pop it out and plug it in. If you want to get one of these and leave it in your car. If you're on the road somewhere down the road and you want to charge your NACS equipped electric vehicle with a Tesla a wall connector or a Tesla what are they, destination charger. There's adapters for that, and then there's adapters for the other way. So you might want to have those in your vehicle anyway. But this, to be able to buy it and charge any vehicle with it is a great move. And I suspect it's going to be copied. Let's see how well that works. But one thing I did find out, at least initially, this is one of the negatives. If that adapter breaks, Tesla will not sell you another adapter. It's tethered to the unit. The way they described it to me, almost you wouldn't be able to do it. There'd be no way for you to attach it and safely. So I would suspect they'll sell you the whole cable that you can swap out with the adapter. But for now, at least, they're not going to sell those adapters individually. That adapter will not be on Tesla's website. They're going to sell some sort of a different adapter, but not that. And if it breaks, you're screwed.
So it's linked,
at least for now.
It's linked to that charger in some sort of way, like a.
I don't think so, Martin. It's the fact that, as I mentioned, let me unplug this. So right now it's tethered to this connector. If it broke, there'd be no way for you to remove this one and put the new one on.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Now, what surprised me, I almost think that there would be a way to do it. If you just broke this thing off, like physically broke it off, cut it off, which they wouldn't allow you to do, and then took the other adapter and put it inside and then slid this in, I would almost think you'd be able to make it work that way. But, for whatever reason, Tesla's decided that they're not going to offer that as an option. And I talk about in my review, one of the few complaints I had about it was, and I'm going to pull this thing out again, was this tab on the top of the adapter is not very robust. You can see there, it's kind of thin compared to the tab on a lot of the other charging equipment that I review. Is usually thicker and it feels more robust than this. And I think this, if it's dropped the right way, I think it'll break. And now you've got an issue, with that. If it breaks, I don't know. It might render the whole charger useless because if you can't dock it back into the unit, then you can't remove the NACS connector. So you wouldn't be able to use it either way. So that's a little bit of an issue. What's that?
You can charge, it just might arc when you unplug it.
Yeah, if you did it properly, I'm sure you could still press the tab and it would turn off the charging, even if that end broke. But it's just something to consider. It's something to consider. I wonder how Tesla's going to deal with that with their commercial applications. It might be something they haven't sorted out yet because these are going to be all over the place commercially. I mean, was it Hilton that signed to install? Hilton, 20,000 of these they're going to install at their chargers. Those tabs are going to break 100%. So what will be the solution? I'm going to follow up and try to get more. I've already asked Tesla this question when they responded to me and said, no, you can't replace it. But I'm going to follow up with a question and say, hey, how about commercial owners? Like you can't tell me they have to buy a whole new $500 unit if that plastic tab breaks. What's going to be the solution? So I'll follow up on that and I'll make that known.
Right on. So, yeah.
But I will, Don, before we move on,
sure.
I do have to say it did score the highest rating on my Charger Rater scorecard than any other electric vehicle charger ever scored. It scored 97 points, and even if they do some small tweaks, it actually could have scored 99 points with a couple of small tweaks. Like I didn't give it a point for the app showing extensive past charging history data, but Tesla has told me that app's going to be ready in like a week. So that would give it another point right there. So that there's this actually could be a 99 score, which is just off the charts for my my scoring system.
Wow, nice. Right on. So let's see. We only have a few other stories that we can touch on really quickly. But Kyle, you had a few videos. I just want to mention to our viewers that so we talked about the Mini Electrics coming a couple episodes back, but you put out a couple of videos this week where you do some walkarounds and talk all about all the features. I don't know if you want to say anything about those vehicles, just go watch the videos. But
yeah, the videos are up there, both on the Mini hardtop and on the Countryman, sort of full tours on both of the electric versions of those.
Right. And the Countryman is the one that's coming here.
Well, they're both coming here, but the Countryman's coming here at launch soon. And then the hardtop or the Cooper, the small one, is just delayed, but they're still planning to bring it to the US. Okay.
Because that one's built in China, right? The small one?
But I think in 26 or 27, they'll build it in the UK, is what it sounds like after some announcements this week.
Okay.
And then that will come. Or that was just announcements for the Aceman. Like, I'm not 100% sure. But Mini says they're working on bringing it to the US.
Okay. That's interesting how they get around, because there's a big tariff for Chinese cars coming here. And
so it might just be expensive. Like EX30 will be built in China. Polestar, Volvo products are already built there.
But Volvo makes cars in the US and exports them, so they can use that as a sort of as a credit against Polestar, the Chinese tariff. Sorry?
Not Polestar.
Polestar cannot, no, unless they built cars just companies that build and export cars from the US can use some of that work to offset the credits. I mean, the tariffs from China.
Okay. Yeah. But I'm not sure how that's going to work from the Polestar standpoint, because unless they're considering part of Volvo Group, which then Mini could be considered part of BMW Group, and they export BMW X5s and X3s from Spartanburg. So who knows how they're going to do it?
Right. All right. Yeah. Oh, you also had a little tour of the smart #1, I believe, #1. That people can check out on your channel this week. That was pretty interesting. So last week we talked a lot about Chinese cars coming to Europe and maybe eventually to the US. And, the EU has a lot of Chinese cars, but this week, and Martin, you're more aware of this than me because you saw it on your EV News Daily show, that the EU is launching like an inquiry or something into the flood of Chinese electric cars in the EU. There's some sort of probe going on. I saw something this morning that the Chinese are understandably not happy about that development. But anything about this we should talk about right now, or should we wait until they come to some sort of decision or?
Okay, so background: Germany, France, big car makers there, badgering the European Commission, European Commission, for a long time over the cheap Chinese cars that are being flooded in. So the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, is spewing about this. And she said, we're going to open an official investigation into possibly opening up tariffs on Chinese cars coming in. And of course, that includes Tesla, because they make their cars in Shanghai, which again is not great for Tesla, because they got obviously Gigafactory Berlin, but it would, maybe it's 10, 20% on a car, makes it ridiculously expensive if they do that. China responded this morning as blatant protectionism, and I'm not sure that is the insult that they think it is, because it's like the Inflation Reduction Act. It's absolutely protectionism. Like, let's not say that's some sort of swear word. I think China was like, gotcha. Like the EU were like, yeah, totally. We are totally wanting to protect our car makers. And why is that? Very quickly, China was very upset. As always, China gets very indignant about these things, but, kind of takes one to know one. They have the largest financial aid tax breaks for electric vehicles. Since 2016, China has spent $57 billion equivalent on supporting the purchase of electric vehicles. That's 5 times what the United States has spent with all the various incentives. Secondly, there's production subsidies. And so if you make an EV, you get subsidies. The biggest beneficiaries of those are BYD and Tesla. They spent $5.4 billion on that over the last year. Thirdly, there's cheap land, cheap loans, cheap grants that the Chinese offer. Have some land, Tesla. Dear Elon, come in, have this land, have these loans from the Chinese banks to build Giga Shanghai. It boosts local economies, but that money's very cheap. Fourthly, R&D is subsidized. Provincial level, local level in China. Key technologies are subsidized. Free money available. Fifth, bulk purchasing. The Chinese EV sector gets a boost because all of the government procurement all buy Chinese-made EVs. So, you want to talk about protectionism? China are the experts at doing that. And you know what? Done a great job with it. So I think ultimately the consumer will lose out on cheap Chinese cars, but they're really good at it themselves. And they hate the idea that Europe's gone, hang on, we're going to add a bunch of money to cars coming in from China. And that's your update on Europe versus China.
Thank you. That was very good. It's like you're a professional.
It almost sounds like you do this for a living.
Hey, 1,900 episodes later. It's all sinking in up here somewhere.
So completely true and spot on. It's, and I've been over there, and I've for Inside EVs covered the Chinese electric vehicle industry kind of when it was in its infancy. I have been backing off a little bit lately. I've been doing a lot of stuff with my own stuff, state of charge, but I spent a lot of time going. I've been to China multiple times, talked to the executives, visited their facilities, and they get a tremendous amount of support for the government. And, you want a new factory? Sure. Here's some land. We'll get the local municipality to chip in half the money, and they'll be your partner in the factory, but you still own the tech and all that. Like it's if the European and American car manufacturers had such support, we would need to really look into some sort of a tariff system, which I don't like, but it is unfair. It flat out, the way it is right now, it's just complete unfair competition. So something has to be done. I mean, we've done it here already with tariffs with Chinese cars. I don't like that. I wish we could negotiate some sort of a better way of dealing with it, but that's just kind of like the hammer. you smell, okay, a tariff, boom, 10 grand a car, 30% or whatever. I'm sure there's other means of making it more fair, but sometimes those are hard to negotiate.
Right on. Hey, so we're going to end the show here right about now. I think Martin has a school run or something to do.
I do. Yeah. I've put him in after school club. He finishes at 3. It's 4 p.m. now here in the UK. And so he's gone to his club for an hour so that I could be here today and every Friday. And but I am on a hard promise to go and get my little man, because were you ever left at school as being the last one picked up by mum or dad and the teacher's waiting there, and it's like, I don't want to be that dad, so I'm going to skedaddle in a minute and go pick him up.
All right. So the only other news little thing I wanted to mention was that there's company Gotion. It's a Chinese battery company. They announced a $2 billion electric vehicle battery gigafactory in Illinois, 40 gigawatt hours of production. They make a lithium manganese iron phosphate chemistry with a really great gravimetric density of 240 watt hours per kilogram, which is about the same as the Tesla 4680 cell, which is kind of impressive for that technology, which is maybe more fire safe. I don't know, but the regular LFP packs are, I'm not sure what the manganese does to that. But anyway, that brings us to the end of our show. If you have any questions or comments, please leave us a comment below or get in touch with us on Twitter, where we are Batteries Inc. Pod, or on Threads, where we are Batteries Included Podcast. You can also follow Martin on Twitter or Threads at EV News Daily. On Twitter, Tom is at Tomolog, that's with 2 M's, and Tomologny on Threads. I'm Dominic Oni on Threads and in real life. Kyle is it's Kyle Connor on Twitter, or I guess I should say X, right? But I'm stuck in the past. Hey, but anyway, y'all know what I'm talking about. He goes by Virtual Kyle on Threads. Don't forget, you can, if you like the show, please give us a thumbs up, click subscribe, tap that bell icon for notifications. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate having you here, and we'll see you all again very soon. Ciao.